How's the job market in 24 compared to 23? 47% of people said worse. Maybe just winding back to the beginning, it has been a difficult year. A lot of people have been out of work. A lot of people have struggled to find work. But once the market picks up, it's going to be very interesting to see. Because also a lot of these places, like it's this classic, like we're a family until we have to make redundancies. Like the facade has started to like come down. It's not them telling you that you're in the wrong career and you need to change up your life. It's just them telling you that this particular job isn't right for you right now. Thank you for joining. And I've got Jamie and Ameera, who look extremely excited. So this is going to be good. I mean, we do this every year. We'll do a little retrospective. So like how we found the year so far. We've got some really good polls we've done on the year as well. So we're going to go through some of them. And then we're going to do a little kind of like put our head above the parapet. What's in store for 25, for job seekers, for people hiring, and some of the trends that we see. So we're going to start like that. Does everyone else want to say hi?
Hello. Hi.
Jamie from New York. Ameera. Right, should we start with the poll? So I'm going to start with a couple of polls that we did, just to get like a sense. So I did one like 11 months ago, just a little sense of like how everyone thinks that if they were looking forward to 24, because 23 was like quite a difficult year for most folks in recruiting. A lot of redundancies, all of that stuff. So at the beginning of last year, people were feeling really optimistic about 24. So like 69% of people, when asked, said that they were very optimistic about 24. I then did one 6 months after, just to get a sense check of actually how the year's been. And then, so halfway through the year, I asked, how's the job market in 24 compared to 23? 47% of people said worse. So like everyone started optimistic. It didn't really pan out to be as that much better than 23. And then I did one this morning, just to get a sense check now. And so it's only been going for a little bit. So when we actually release this, we can actually release like the full stats. But I asked compared to 23, what's the job market like? Is it better or worse? And currently 50% of people have said it is worse. So that is a state of play. Jamie, what do you reckon? How's it been? Maybe from a job seeker, for folks looking for work. How do you think the year's panned out?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it means that 50% of people also think the job market was better or improving.
Yeah.
And so I think that's pretty much on par with like the state of the world, where half the people see it one way and the other half are seeing something else. And I think that we're just in a time of really individualized experiences, and depending on where you're coming from and what you're looking for, there are opportunities for some folks. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a different shift for people who've been in more traditional, corporate type of roles, to kind of see what that next career move might be for them.
Yeah. 23 was interesting, wasn't it? Because you had banks made redundancies, tech firms made redundancies.
Yeah.
So the first time, I think we were talking about this the other day, like tech firms behaved a bit like banks when they just like hired loads over COVID, and then they just like cut everyone, which is historically quite an investment banky thing to do. And then for the tech firms, it's always been almost constant hiring, hasn't it? Just growth and growth and growth. And these tech firms have like grown and grown. And then suddenly, boom, all the big ones made redundancies. The VCs pulled a lot of money. And then we wandered into 24. And I think, again, there's been so many things happening in the world, hasn't there? But it's just for me, it's slowly improved over the year. Nothing crazy, but slowly improved. But I think also people are trying to find, to your point there, like place in the world. Like this like greasy pole that people have been trying to climb up in corporate America or corporate UK or whatever. If you found yourself out, I think it's quite difficult to adjust.
Do you think that's going to change like next year as well? In terms of like, is there going to be a difference, or is it going to be the same linear kind of like perspective?
I think, you can answer, but I think a lot of people that I've spoken to have been fed up with like large corporates there's definitely been a trend to SMEs. Maybe once these tech firms start hiring again, people will just forget how badly treated they were and go back. Because I think what's been interesting is, these big tech firms, they obviously the brand names are good. People want to go work there. It's interesting work, all of that. The pay's good and kudos is good and all of that kind of stuff. And then during tough times, they just cut people regardless, right? So there was no loyalty to employees, was there? The minute it got tough, just cut. So when they start rehiring, it's going to be interesting to see. People just do you know what? I got badly treated, but whatever, I'm going to go back. Or if they really remember and they just hated it and they actually have a better life, in a smaller, mid-sized firm where they can manage their energy, time. Obviously, money's important as well, so they need to find the right spot. But it's going to be interesting to see. I think some people will go back. Law of shares and.
I think it also depends on, how leadership positions the value proposition. I think people work for people, not companies. And so if there's a way to storytell and really talk about how things are different, because people do remember how they were treated. And it's really hard to unlearn or to move back away from the way that you perceived something. And so you have to learn something new. So I do think if companies come around, I think Uber is a really good example. I'll call them out. They had a tough reputation a few years ago. They made some great changes. They made some leadership changes. They made some social pledges. They really shifted the culture of the company. And I think that people really bought into the story. So I do think right now what we're missing is companies really thinking about experience and really trying to really create that brand value proposition that was so important 5-6 years ago. You had that halo effect around the tech companies that, probably isn't as shiny as it used to be. But I think if you've worked with good people, if you really believe in the story, if you believe in the mission, if you believe that there's some value and some impact, I do think that they'll be able to attract, talent back. But I also think that it'll never be what it was in the sense that I think some people will just, choose different paths. And I also think right now we don't know what we don't know. And that's probably the first time that we haven't really been able to say, this is where the growth is going to happen. Although I do think the biggest difference now is we're starting to see the lights go on in the AI firms, in, smaller companies. There's more hiring. So,
Yeah.
I think 6 months ago, we were all just looking at the bigger firms to see when they would open up headcount. And I think everyone's kind of stopped waiting for that and are starting to, tread waters that maybe they weren't thinking about, 6-12 months ago.
Yeah.
But I think people have become more introspective in terms of what does work actually mean to them. And I don't think they're going to go and start looking at the traditional path anymore. There is so much kind of opportunities out there. It's work is not linear. And there is so many different, the whole gig economy kind of thing. I feel like that's going to be the next kind of thing. For corporates, kind of employees.
Yeah. Do you think corporates could adjust and create that value proposition?
They should.
Yeah.
I think it's smart for them to do that. Mm-hmm. You can see so much opportunities out there. People are finding their own paths. They looking at their own skill sets and they're kind of what can I do with this kind of thing? And they know they can have more opportunities in that kind of way instead of just going to one kind of direction and thinking this is it. So companies do need to be aware of that. And it's a line of, okay, what does value mean to them? And also it's different types of benefits as well. Do I want to work with the community? Do I want to do my thing with solo? People finding so many different paths. That's what's in it for them.
Yeah.
So the whole shift has changed.
Massively.
I think,
we were talking about for people, for ourselves, why would someone want to come work in our firm? And what do we have to offer? And, different types of personas of people. I think more broadly, companies... Definitely that what people want from work is changing. Mm-hmm. And maybe that always changes, but it feels like because from COVID, right? It feels like that's just accelerated. Had the work from home, flexible working, all of that kind of stuff.
It's becoming more like an employee first mindset. Before it was you should be proud to come and work here.
Well, you used to be able to hit someone over the head with a paycheck.
Yeah.
And now
it's not enough anymore.
It's not enough anymore.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Well, there was an exchange for that, right? Because there was a sense of stability. Even if companies weren't growing, you still felt like they weren't going to be cutting. Although that does happen from time to time, I think that there was a population that was usually, you've had tenure, you're kind of at some sort of, inflection point in your own career. You see the road ahead of you a little bit more clearly. I think the biggest shock to the system over the last couple of years is that the companies that did these cuts were cutting talent that they fought really hard to get, and they fought really hard to build a value to their brand to attract. And I think that's pretty shocking when you're taking this talent pool that you've cultivated over years and then, kind of cut it off. And, I think the expectation is that works when there's not a lot of opportunities out there, because we just don't know what's coming, and because all of this talent is now let loose on the market, creating companies, getting together, becoming the next, industry, or becoming the next thing. I mean, growth has to come from somewhere. We were used to it coming from certain sectors, and I think that has been a shock to a lot of people, especially who've lived in the tech world, that, the usual suspects were no longer the usual suspects, and really there was no ability to see around corners. And that's not, if you're like looking internally in some of these companies, there's a lot of, friction, there's a lot of tension, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's not a healthy place to be for anybody. And so if that's the kind of work, environment that you're in, as soon as there's a glimmer somewhere else, as soon as there's another opportunity, I think people are going to be more, more willing to take that risk, because risk looks a little bit different now staying,
Yeah, it
in
doesn't.
your role.
It might not even be risky. It might be even too risky to stay.
It might be too risky to stay.
Because if you get, what happens often when people earn more money is they start spending more money. They get a bigger mortgage, all of this kind of stuff, and then suddenly you get the phone call, or an email, or text message, whatever. And it's like, sorry, you're out, can't come in on Monday. Yeah. It's risky. So I think that you're right. Like the facade has started to like come down, because also a lot of these places, like it's this classic, like we're a family until we have to make redundancies. Right? And like all these firms, like, Culture, a lot of them think it's free snacks, football table, all of that kind of thing.
And they still do.
A lot of them still do, yeah. But for me, it's like how you treat people, things like that. That's real culture, isn't it? Interactions between people and stuff. But I think, at difficult moments like financial crisis, COVID, again, you realise that they're loyal to their shareholders. If they need to cut, you've got to cut. It's a business. And then it starts getting into people's minds. And I think a lot of people are reevaluating their lives, valuing energy, time. We talk about it a lot of the time. It's money, energy, time. So I think a lot of people have been thinking through it. Everyone's talking about mental health a lot more now, like work-life. I always like work-life integration, because people talk about work-life balance a lot, don't they? But the opposite of life's death, and always is some weird equation. So I like integration, and a lot of people have been talking a lot more about that. Mm-hmm. And that might be in an SME. It might be in a big firm. It might be in a startup. It might be in a small. But I think as an individual, you've got to be a lot more maybe thoughtful about what you want out of work and stuff. And for big firms, or for any firm, you've got to tap into what society is talking about and feeling, and then try and create a proposition to attract the best folks, whether it's like on a project basis or full time, or because you want access to the best people, don't you? And the best person might be someone who's really happy in a gig economy kind of role, where they've got a few things going on, but they're like the best, whatever it is. And you could just do that, you can use them for 6 months. Or it could just be someone that wants like full time. And so you've got to be a bit more like fluid.
I think the more I've thought about mental health, I think it's really about mental fitness. And I think the places that you can go where you really are emphasizing just that day-to-day ability to, meet your basic needs, in a lot of these roles, especially when, things are really busy, people are foregoing, the things that really are what keep you going, just taking a break, taking a walk, drinking water, eating healthy, these things, for some people, they tend to get really into the work that they're doing, and they tend to forgo, these things that really are the sustainability factors that really lead to that next level. And so we've talked a little bit about, how do you get to the next level? And I think the focus that we can help people with is it's not just doing more at work. Like we have AI now, productivity is going to go through the roof. you're going to be able to be more productive than you've ever been. It's up to you. If you want to get to that next level, if you want to get to that place in leadership where you're able to really, be that calm in the storm, be that executive presence. It's less, I think, about doing and finding more things to be productive. It's really about, what is happening in, that whole wheel of your life. How are you taking care of yourself? Because if you can take care of yourself, you can take care of others. And I think the model especially has always been, how productive can I be? How much can I do? But now, we all have access to tools. We can all, do a lot. So I'd like to see, mental fitness kind of be more on the agenda, and how, the new kind of echelon of leadership really encouraging their teams, not just to do more, but to, if you're taking care of yourself, you can be more strategic. If you're taking care of yourself, like you said, you can get your head above the parapet and really see what's happening, what's coming. And that's really the value right now, is being able to see what's coming, prepare for it, and then, align others to meet the moment. And so, yeah, mental fitness for me is like the theme of 2025.
For 25. All right. I love that. Should we give a few tips on what we do?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's not just a checklist, because a lot of corporates think show a video, do some checklists, or write a little email and we're good to go. I think it's so important for people to be openly communicating. And when they can see that, this person is being very flexible, they care about the mental well-being, that means it's okay for me to do that as well. Mm-hmm. And then that should be coming from leadership first, so top to down. And so what do we do?
So what do you do we can talk about what we do, but what did you do as an individual? So, because we talked about yesterday, we talked a bit about the company, but it was also dangerous as an individual to wait for the company to provide training, or the company to. So I think for me, because we talk about being the CEO of your life, your career.
But before you even say waiting for the company, you have to make sure that you're in an environment that is safe to do so, because there's a lot of companies that still kind of roll their eyes on this kind of subjects. So, luckily, if you come from a good culture, that gives you that kind of safety to say, my mindset comes first, my well-being comes first, because I know if I'm in a good space, I'll perform better. I'll be the best version of myself.
Yeah.
So for me, when I look at this, because I've been doing this for quite some time, and I suffered a lot from burnout, and this is from working for corporate SME startups. I've done it all, and you always get the same results. I'm a high performer. I always want to be the best version of myself, but I don't know when to stop. And then that's where the crash comes in. And I'm thinking, why? Why is this? So for someone to think, I'm just going to go in an environment and all of a sudden I'm going to think my well-being is going to be just like this. It's not. It's hard work. So the first thing you do is have that awareness, and then look at your own kind of patterns. Where is the spot that where this is where I'm crashing, and you have to make sure that what's the halfway point for you to put all these kind of things in place.
Did you add anything to your game or your work
100%.
to be more balanced?
Yeah, I think the first thing I do is I have a good morning routine, because that sets my mind. That sets my tone for the day. Good morning routine and night routine are the two things that I don't kind of I take seriously.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have that, then your mind just becomes so noisy and everything's on the go. So for people to say, how do I, be the best version of yourself? You need clarity. You need that focus first. And for you to have that focus, it's where is your quiet spot? Just wake up, have that 10 minutes. Don't look at your phone. Just ground yourself. And as soon as you do that, then you'll be like, okay, what else can I do? Then you have your list of that day. Then you know how to think, okay, what's the priority of that list? What's the next stage? What else? It's you are more focused in terms of where you're going and how you're leading your day. And because of that, you feel more satisfied. That guilt doesn't come in. And then you don't feel that rush, oh my God, I have this to do. You can break things all down. Right, when it comes to work and personal life.
Yeah, definitely. Love that.
I do work out, and that also helps me and it balances me as well. I need an outlet, and you can't, life happens, and you gotta do something to get things out your system, and you gotta make sure you're doing it the right way.
Yeah, I love that. I'm like, I'll come to you in a sec, Jamie. I just thought, so it's like it's like see over your life, but also I love the like having always talk about like having a good ground game. So like often like for me that means like just turning up on time, being dressed well, being organised and things like that. But also looking after, like to your point, looking after yourself. Whether it's like however you like to ground yourself, a few breaths outside in the morning, or an ice bath, or a CrossFit sesh, or yoga, or just a walk is great. But once you get into a habit of that, and it might take you like a month or two, like once you actually do it regularly, then what do they say? It takes 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something to become habit. But if you do those good healthy habits and you move around, then you get all these endorphins and you feel good, and then you can start doing work, and especially if you're doing really concentrated work where you're like on the computer for hours and hours. Like you just, we're human, aren't we? Like our energy levels, like.
You also have to learn to move within the whole day as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So being mindful. It's just basically being mindful of yourself.
And knowing yourself.
Yeah. Knowing yourself.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
One of our colleagues, Gio, uses this Pomodoro thing. So it's a time, he's got time on his browser, and he's like, he can concentrate for, I don't know what this, but whatever it is, X minutes. And so he puts it on, he does constant work, goes off, reminds him he needs to go for a little walk. Even like, even just walk around your place or go out and make a coffee, whatever, come back and then get back into it. So those kind of things is about yourself. Whether you're in an office or at home, it doesn't really matter. Like you can try and manage yourself in the best way. It's really good. What do you do, Jamie?
I think that this is really interesting because I think all of these suggestions are really easy to implement. And I think, I just thought about like, it could be really easy for someone to walk outside. If you're working in a building, 20 floors up, you're not going to walk outside, right? Like it's really hard. So effort then becomes harder to execute. So then to your point, like, what do you do if you're in the middle of your day? We're talking about prompts, right? Like right now, I'm just taking 2 fingers and I can just rub them together. And it's just like immediate centering. It's an immediate way to, like bring myself back to what I'm doing and give myself like that mental break. Because I think the first thing is absolutely find a routine for yourself outside of work or during work. We definitely are in an environment now where we can break up our day and do things for ourselves that really stop the cycle of chronic stress. And that's one of the things about movement. We tend to work in a culture and tend to, live in a Western culture where narrative is everything. So our mind is constantly creating a narrative. We're constantly talking to people, creating narrative. And what movement does, what exercise does, what just bringing your fingers together does, planting your feet on the floor, it just stops the rumination and it just kind of gives you a reset. And I think the reset is one of the most important things we can do, especially when I talk to people. We are meeting heavy, especially in corporate environments. And we have all of these things that we try to do, but your time is not your own. And I think the biggest takeaway is that's up to you. You get to be, how do you elevate? How do you get to that next level? You really have to, be the kind of person that is comfortable creating that boundary for yourself. And once you create that boundary for yourself, I do think that people will tend to respect it, because if you can produce better work, if you are all of a sudden showing up, being the voice of reason in the room, if you're, I love the way that we started this podcast, and we should start every meeting like this, 10 seconds of silence. I said something different than I would have said if I had 0 seconds of silence. And so, I think we've talked about, what is the next step? And it's really about creating your own agency, because no one is going to give you the permission to do this. It's not the company's job. It's not your boss's job to tell you how to adult, right? And we are all adults in our lives, and we come to work and we kind of shift our mindset and think that someone's going to give us permission or someone's going to give us direction. If we want to be, really in a leadership role, even if you're a leader of yourself, you kind of set the tone. So creating that routine, I think, is the most important thing you can do.
Love
do that
that
for yourself.
Yeah, it's true. To expand that a little bit more, you're going to be working for a long time. And you've got to treat yourself like a pro athlete, I think, like sleep, nutrition, exercise. Because you can go like really hard, super hard, but you can't do that forever. And in almost, I'd say in almost every career, like you want to be like playing, right? You want to be in the pitch, like get experience, the more you're in it, the better you get, the more experience you have and things. So if you think of it as like a long-term thing, you have to look after yourself. Like there's no other option.
Mm-hmm. And also communicate. Like if you are working in that kind of environment, communicate to your like team leader, whatever. It's not like the entitlement attitude. You have to meet each other halfway. Like don't take advantage of that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And if you're a leader, encourage your team to take time off.
Yeah,
Because it's a no-brainer, right? You don't want to be like, oh, hey, can I take time off? No, don't you? Like you get some people still like that. Just take time, recharge. If you're in a situation where people are frowning, like rolling their eyes back, and saying no to time off and things like that, you're probably in the wrong spot. So I think that's really important. On work from home, because work from home has been a trend we've been speaking about for like a million years now, hasn't it? And this year, it's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of firms that are like pulling people back now. So I think it's been an interesting one. Where do you think we'll land, like this coming next 12 months on like working from home versus office? And I think there is probably a difference between large corporates and SMEs, also industry as well. But like maybe for these white collar workers that are in like...
I think hybrid's still going to be in place. It's going to be the new normal. If it's going to be 100%, do you mean?
So I'm hearing, to give some
Monday to
context,
Friday?
context, Amazon want people back 5 days a week or go find a new job. Dell have said you won't be promoted unless you're in 5 days a week. Capgemini have said you need to be near a hub 3 days a week or go find another job. I think I've probably missed a few. A lot of the law firms, insurance companies, banks, it's at least 3-4 days a week. So you have had a lot of people that maybe moved further away. And I know a lot of folks I spoke to this last like few months that they're looking for a new job because they can't go to an office because they moved too far away. And you have to basically like the kind of like the little kind of like strap line is like commute or quit, basically.
I think that you just answered your question then. People will probably quit then.
If they can afford to.
Yeah, but there are so many other kind of like job opportunities are showing hybrid is like the new normal. Why wouldn't you go in that direction?
I think
there are so many options out there.
I think there'll be, depending on the level you're at, because I think for leaders, and we're speaking to someone, weren't we, like yesterday, when you hit a level where you're looking for either your first leadership role or like a little promotion, and it's like a pyramid structure. A lot of people here, they're not used to like having to go look for a job or how to go about doing it. And there might not be like that many other options. If you're like whatever it is, might be head of marketing and they've asked you to come back and you want another head of marketing job or something and you just can't find one. So you're either left with like having to relocate or just taking the risk of stepping out. But as the market picks up, I do agree with you. I think as the market picks up and people have more choice, I think they're going to just be like, I'm out.
I would also be remiss if I didn't say that commuting doesn't work for everyone. And there is going to be a population, commute or quit. Quitting will be, if they're in a position where they can. And then you're taking people out of the workforce that really should be in the workforce, that really want to be in the workforce. I talk to so many people. It's not that they don't want to be in an office. And I think that's the really big difference. The commute can be really, really draining in some areas where, most of these companies are located. And they're not all created equal. So I think that there's a lot of paradox happening and a lot of contradiction. And I think that people are really smart and they can, make the rules for themselves in a way. So it's not just a commute or quit. It's maybe I will, do that quiet quitting, which is not great. And that's not people at their best. But, people are being pushed into places where, it really should be about performance, not proximity. And I think that companies are quickly going to understand that. I also think that you have a lot of top talent. They're not probably going to be back in the office 3 or 5 days a week. I don't think companies really want them to leave. So I think eventually it's kind of like a whistle. You're blowing it. You're, creating an environment where maybe you do shake some leaves from the tree. And then, the pendulum's going to swing back. So I think what we've learned these last few years is every time there's an edict or a directive, it comes out, it's a hard line, and then we start to dig in a little bit deeper, and then you realize you don't actually want some of your top performers to leave, and so you start creating, cases where people can, work around that system. So I think you are going to get people that, do leave and don't come back, to that environment.
And then they wonder why the best talents are going.
Yeah. So there's some lessons there. I mean, if you can put a proposition in place as an employer where you're listening to what people want and you can create the right environment for people to thrive in, then you're going to be really successful at hiring the best folks. I want to sorry, you're going to say something more?
Yeah.
Okay. I did a poll 5 months ago. The question was, if your company changed its work from home policy, I would. And so quit, stay, but start looking, or get on with it. And 59% said that they would stay, but start looking.
The quiet quitting, right? Policy.
Arguably, right? It's
Yeah.
because again, maybe just winding back to the beginning, it has been a difficult year. A lot of people have been out of work. A lot of people have struggled to find work. And so, given that, if you're in a job, but once the market picks up, it's going to be very interesting to see. There was some good stats, and this is 5 months ago, but the LinkedIn and Microsoft did a survey, and it basically was so the results of the survey was 46% of people they surveyed are considering quitting their job. This was 5 months ago. 85% of US professionals are eyeing a new job, and 51% of job seekers feeling completely burned out. So I think this is building into there's not been loads of options. People are probably in jobs maybe they don't want to be in, or they're just happy to have one. There's a lot of burnout, and I think as the market starts to pick up, and it picks up quick, and the wind changes quite quickly, I think it's going to be very dynamic job market.
Mm-hmm. Just to go back to the idea of commuting, it's like we talk about time and energy, and I think that again, people want to be in an office. I do think people enjoy it. If it's worthwhile, there's not a lot of downside to being around people, to getting that energy. But when you're trading, hours of your life, hours away from your family, especially once you've enjoyed that freedom and flexibility, I think that's where, we can probably do more to support people that are commuting longer distances, to really emphasize flexibility. I think companies that are still, retaining a flexibility policy while, having an RTO or a hybrid policy are going to retain, great people.
Yeah.
Some of the companies you mentioned, they are, kind of known for being, I wouldn't say ahead of the curve, but kind of, being leaders in policy. And so, some people might follow that, but I don't think 5 days a week is going to be the trend. That's my prediction.
I think hybrid.
Yeah.
I think they need to be flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flexibility matters.
Yeah. You got to meet each other halfway.
I think so.
Yeah.
And also, just as a point of note, if you're in a job where you could work flexibly, be really grateful, because there's a lot of industries, healthcare and other industries, where you have to go in. There's no option to be flexible.
It's funny. It's like a lot of those industries, even during COVID, didn't really didn't have extended stays at home. So their Pandora box wasn't fully open.
They were cracking on. If you're if you're a nurse, doctor,
teacher,
first responder,
they wouldn't want. I don't know a lot of teachers that want to work remote. I think that they are, highly sensitive, work, in a sense-driven environment, like touch matters, so I think there's some industries people aren't having this discussion. I think it's the people that are sitting behind a computer on screens all day. I think those are the ones that are really questioning why.
Yeah. So as a business, you've got to think what works for you. Mm-hmm. And some jobs you can do remote, some you've just got to construct the right scenario. And as an individual, again, you get to choose, right? If it works for you, if it doesn't, you choose. You want to be in the office. It's not big of a commute. You like seeing humans. You don't want to go.
I think some people are also going to feel more pressure. If you're a breadwinner and you don't have a lot of choice, you're going to feel real
Well, you get
real trapped in this decision.
You've
If
got to
you're,
go.
double income family and you're choosing to work and you can, make the choice. I mean, not everyone's designed equally. And so, there are some situations, to Ameera's point where, you're going to see some populations face a lot more burnout a lot quicker.
Yeah. But absolutely, you're right. Like economics is huge, right? You're in a job, you're earning money, supporting your family, number one thing. And then you've got some other priorities that maybe you could, you still work, but you can have a little look out for something else that maybe fulfills some of your other needs, and, and you go about it like that, I think. I want to talk about one other poll that we did, the 8 a.m. meeting, which was quite trendy this year. And then I want to have a little look forward of maybe to some advice on people that are starting to look and want to look for a job, just some tips, and we can share some stuff on how to look. The ATM meeting was trending on TikTok, wasn't it? I think a while ago. It's probably about 8 months ago or so. And so the scenario is that this guy was asked to attend an 8 a.m. meeting by his boss at last minute, and the response from the guy was, "I've got a gym session, not turning up to the 8 a.m. meeting." And so there was a little bit of a...
Was he a junior as well?
He looked like a younger guy. Yeah.
I think context matters.
Context is important. Yeah. So a younger guy, and he's like, no, I've got my gym sesh. I ain't come to the 8 a.m. meeting. So I did a poll, and we talked about it internally a lot. I think there was a lot of stuff, a lot of comedy. The results of the poll were interesting. I can't come to the 8 a.m. meeting, I have a gym class. 27% of people said completely unacceptable. 60% says completely acceptable. And then 13% couldn't decide. So I think it was interesting. I mean, for me, actually, the guy was included in the meeting. He excluded himself. So I think there's always context, right? If it's like the one-off thing, he said also, you pay me from 9 till 5 or something. So, as the individual, I think you need to, participate.
But you also can argue about the well-being factor, right?
Tell me.
It's like taking care of myself. That's what it's like. Content matters.
Absolutely.
Like, how important was it for this person to come in? Why was he just told, last minute? And then number two, it's like the other side of it. It's a great opportunity to learn and to show up. So, I don't know. I'm stuck with this one.
You turn up to the 8 a.m. meeting.
This version, yeah, I have to. But if it's not necessary for me to show up, then why should I?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you know what I think? It's actually about having a good relationship with your team members, colleagues, teammates, and stuff like that. If you've got a good relationship, and you have good lines of communication, sometimes things pop up either way, and it's way easier. Like, it's not a difficult conversation and things like that. If you don't have a good relationship with people, then, again, you're like, can you turn up the 8 a.m. meeting? No. I mean, that you can imagine that relationship's only going one way after that, depending, you know what I mean? So I think for me, it's just have good relationships with people, have open lines of communication, and then once you can talk about stuff, it's way easier.
I think I've changed my mind on the 8 a.m. meeting. Ooh. Only because we're talking about, what this year has brought, what 2025 is about, being the CEO of your life and your career. If you're a CEO, you get that invitation, you're like, it just, you're making that decision for yourself. I also think that, we've been talking a lot about, managers versus leaders. If you're a leader, you got to inspire people. You got to make that 8 a.m. meeting really inspirational. Why am I doing this? Why do I need you there? It's not just like show up because I gave you some, last minute. And that does happen, right? But I think to your point about relationship, if you trust someone and you really believe that there's value in you doing that, and, like Ameera's talked about her morning routine, like it centers her, and so I think everyone, gets to pick and choose. And I think I did think about this, the last time, you pick and choose, you get to, you pick your own risk and reward system. And I think that, the 8 a.m. meeting can be, code for a lot of different power dynamics. And I think that we're moving away from an environment where, people, are going to be able to lead by authority. I think leadership in the future is leading with empathy, we want people to act like adults, make decisions for themselves and put up the boundaries that work for them. And so, if we're talking about mental health and someone's like, hey, this is part of my routine, I signed up for this class. I mean, I don't know, it's an I don't know about that particular situation, but, would I show up for the 8 a.m. meeting? Of course. But, are there going to be extenuating circumstances? Always, so.
Yeah, it's just communication. It could be like, hey, I'd love you on this 8 a.m. meeting with me. I can't do it without you.
Oh,
Like, can you come?
sign me up.
And you're like, sign me up.
That's different.
Right? If it's like, do you know what? I know it's annoying. I know you got your gym class. Do you mind turning up? I'd leave early, whatever. We'll go for lunchtime. Like it's quid pro quo, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's like, got to come to this 8 a.m. meeting or whatever, just something that's...
Because if you set that tone, then the other person would be like, if I don't show up, what if it kind of like ruins their dynamic of growth? Mm-hmm. Because that's where kind of, it's like the unconsciously, am I going to move forward? Can I go anywhere? Am I going to get that promotion? Are they going to see me in the wrong way if I say no? It's like, how do you kind of like put boundaries in place, have that open communication, and also say to like whoever, like, I want to be here, instead of them thinking, oh, they don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give them any more opportunities.
Yeah. Be there for people. People
Yeah.
will be there for you. It's like a contract between
Yeah.
people, right? When you're working together. It's like teammates and...
But I think that's the key word, working together. I think right now we're in a very, we're in a shifting power dynamic situation where, again, people want more control and more, agency over their lives. And so being told what to do doesn't feel great, but being asked, different.
Yeah.
Being inspired, super cool.
I feel like that expectation should be from the start.
Yeah.
When you have that open communication, like from the get-go, then it's easy for you to kind of like build those kind of like blocks. But if you're kind of like in there and all of a sudden you're doing a U-turn, that's where the confusion conflicts come in place, and the power dynamics, what's going on, and so on and so on and so on. So if you are like in the halfway system, how do you put healthy boundaries in place and have that communication for someone to move forward in the right way? What advice would you give to them?
I would tell people, start with why. Hey, it's really important for you to attend this meeting. There's going to be this really important client. I want them to get to know you. It's the time zone difference. It's not going to be every week, or even if it is, like, this is going to be so good for you. And I really just wanted to include you. You're starting with why. And if you give people the story instead of, we're always focused on the what. We're always focused on the how, but if we start with why, I do think people really get it. If you don't give people insight into why you're thinking what you're thinking, we talked about this today, even with parenting, it's like, start with why, build a vision, build a mission, and then people, will be inspired. And then what's great is they'll show up to the 8 a.m. meeting even when you're not there, because you're instilling, a sense of, accountability. But, if you're building in resentment, or you're building in certain, it's all not what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah.
So my
100%.
advice is, build a vision. People really, really respond well when they feel like they have a foundation behind what they're doing. Otherwise, I've worked in places where you're super operational. 100% of the people will show up to the meeting 100% of the time. And they're not going, it doesn't go anywhere. There's no value add.
I feel like purpose is like it's becoming more of a thing now.
100%.
Like lead with purpose, work with purpose. And I think that's going to be carried on for like the next year as well.
Yeah. It's always, lead with why. It's the classic Martin Luther King, right? I had a dream, not a 10-point plan kind of thing. Like people, they like stories. We love storytelling as humans, and you want to feel like you're like, why am I doing it? Come to the 8 a.m. meeting. We've got a super important pitch. I can't do it without you. And kind of together. So it doesn't really matter the context, right? It could be the 8 a.m. meeting, it could be anything else. But if you've got the open lines of communication and people understand why, and you're on it together, and it's said in a nice way, then most people are really reasonable, and want to do well, right?
We've also talked about people that are like really happy where they're at. They're not trying to gun it for the next level. So they're going to be like, not going to make it to the 8 a.m. meeting. If that person's valuable in other ways, you're going to be like, that's cool too, So it goes both ways. Not everyone is, trying to show up all the time, because it's really difficult to show up for everyone all the time. And we talk about, this balance or integration, if we're talking about that, 8 a.m. is a really vulnerable time for a lot of people.
Well, also, do you know what the other thing is? I mean, obviously, time zone, it could be an international company. It's crazy. But absolutely, it can work the other way because you could ask them, can you come? I really need you.
Yeah.
And they could say, look, and they could say, I have to take my kids to school. I'm really sorry, like, I've got no one else to do it. So as the leader, manager, or however you look, that's cool. Like, you've got to be also, sometimes people can't do things. So you can't be like, like hurt when they say no, and not everyone's going to say yes all the time. But again, the why and the context is important, right? It's not like, I'm just not going because I just don't want to move my gym sesh.
Yeah. You're not paying me for that. You're not paying me for those hours.
Yeah, that's just a
that's
little
just a
bit.
different mindset.
It's just a different mindset. If it's like, I really want to do it, I have to take my kids to school, then any reasonable person will be like, cool, no worries. Let me try and move the meeting. And if I can't move the meeting, like, I'll get you on the next one. It's fine. I'll get someone else to do it. Mm-hmm. Just like, so you can,
there's nothing, there's no data point I've forgotten more than, and this is a little bit morbid, so we can cut it out, but most heart attacks happen, it was in the New York Times article, at like 2 a.m. on a Monday morning. There's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of feelings like people have when they're trying to get their day started. And, I think that, we have to be really sensitive to the fact that people are, doing the best that they can. And so when I think about the 8 a.m. meeting, I think about, we've had this conversation before, like, listen, that's when I'm getting my kids ready for school. I'm going to make sure that it is all worked out, but things happen and you're like, yeah, it's great. Because the intention behind it. We've all, we work in a global company. We've showed up at 4 a.m. meetings. You've had different things. I mean, we have to do some really weird times.
Yeah. So no one wants to I mean, the worst thing is like asking someone to come to an early meeting or a really late meeting, because is like, it's just not a, but sometimes you got to do stuff. But this goes back to my thing of whether you're like leading a team, or whether you're trying to like get on and you're a team member and stuff. Either way, just building relationships is just a great foundation for any difficult conversation that might come your way.
I agree with that.
Let's have a little look to the future, 2025. And we had a lot of folks have asked us this, right? It's like, the classic basic question is like, how do I find a job right now? And we're talking about leaders here. So we're talking about someone that's either in a leadership position or trying to get their first one. And it's very different. Looking for a job, finding a job, how it looks is very different to earlier on in your career, where there's more and more available opportunities. Jamie, have you got any advice of how someone can go about doing that?
Yeah. We talked about this. I need a job right now. Like, nothing happens in the moment. And I think, the way that especially executive positions are filled, they're not necessarily always brought to market, so it's not that it's a hidden job market, but there are relationships that happen, so it's really important. If you're somebody, first of all, let's take a step back. You're the CEO of your career, so you need to sit down and think about what's next. If you don't design it, it will be designed for you. And you're not going to have any say in where you're going. And so you really should be really clear on what you want, and then you can articulate that really well. And you can do a better job of reaching out and starting to build relationships with the right people. And the right people are not necessarily, some people think networking is talking to strangers. It's really about who have you worked with, who have you enjoyed working with, who have they enjoyed working with. And you start there, you start having conversations with people. A lot of times in an interview process, you're really trying to make data-driven decisions. And the only way that you can get data is by having conversations. So if you're thinking about what's next in your career, we were talking about prompts, right? And so a good prompt is you're having your end of year discussion and you're thinking about, what you want to do next. And the path isn't there for you in your current role. It's up to you to start carving that path, right? Like, no one else can really do it for you. And so the biggest mistake I think people make is they just want to get to the next level and they don't know what that is. And so you start doing things really out of turn instead of really being intentional. So the first thing is, create the plan, talk to the right people. We've talked about building your board of directors. It should not all be in your circle. Find those people out there that are doing something that you want to do. We've also talked about, this idea of if you want to become a CEO or you want to become a COO or you want to become a head of something, what is the path that you need to take? Do you need to learn, another part of the function? Do you need to take a step sideways, or do you need to learn something different? People that are doing that and really understanding how businesses work are usually the ones that get to move forward. And then the last thing is, use the conversations, with your leadership to really ask questions. A lot of times, you show up in those conversations and, it's really about, am I getting promoted, or what is my salary increase? And I think, we need to be a little bit more intentional and holistic about, what do I want to learn this year? I really come to think, this year has been about learning and earning. So if you're not being promoted, if you are, you haven't gotten that next opportunity, what am I learning? So hopefully we're all earning and learning. Sometimes we're earning. If you're not learning in your job, go learn outside your job. I really love it when people are telling me what they're doing for themselves. What are they reading? I love when people are, some of the best executives that I've worked with are teaching classes at universities, and really just getting, out there. And it's a great way to be on top of trends. It's a great way to, be, able to connect with different generations. So get out there, learn what you want to learn, and then, bring that back. And if you're not getting what you need out of your current company or your current role, don't take it personal. It's really hard to create paths of growth and learning right now. So just go out there and, create something for yourself. And I think this is a great time for people to do that. Because the usual suspects, those big companies that we're always hiring and really looking to expand, it's just not there maybe right now. But doesn't mean that there's not opportunities for growth. So
True.
That's my prediction for next year.
Love that. I'm going to give a few things, and then I'll let Ameera, you can talk about personal brand, which is massive.
I can't wait to hear it.
Massive now. So some actionable things, I think, for someone just, how can I find a job right now? To carry on your theme. So networking. So be good at staying in touch with your colleagues, people that you've, clients, whatever industry you're in, but just build your network. And it's so easy on LinkedIn. You can just press connect. Hey, great to work with you, whatever. So many people I speak with, they get jobs through people that they've worked with. Mm-hmm. They follow. Classic is how did you get there? Oh, I used to work with this person and they joined another firm and they brought me in and things like that. So personal network's huge, especially for a lot of these leadership roles where they're not advertised and all of that stuff. That your personal network is massive. Obviously, headhunters. Go speak to loads of headhunters. At the leadership level, searches are retained. One search firm working on them. So as the job seeker or looking for that next step, you've got to go and keep your net really wide. Large search firms, wonderful boutiques like ours, all of that stuff. And then the third is you might find something that's advertised if you're lucky. So LinkedIn's a number one jobs board, and I would do that. On the and then the other, and that's proactive stuff. So you can actively go and network with folks. You can actively speak with headhunters. You can actively look for job ads. The other thing is, to your point about you want to be the COO, you want to be the CEO, you want to be the sales director. How many COO friends do you have? How many CEO friends do you have? How many sales director friends do you have? And the answer is none. You kind of need to go make some. I think you need to be around the people that are doing what you want to do. And again, you can actually kick off online on LinkedIn. You can message people. You can ask them for a 10-minute chat, coffee. So you can be proactive and network digitally. And a lot of people will probably give you 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and you can start to talk to people that are doing the job that you want to do. And it's quite a nice way. The other is personal branding, which I'm going to let you speak about.
I was going to just tag you.
Oh, yeah, go on.
With yours,
Yeah.
Both of yours together. I love the learning and earning. So if you're not earning, you're learning, right? I think the biggest thing that people get confused when personal brand is they have the banner, they make sure all their profiles, everything's done, and that's it, I'm done. That's my branding done. But really, it's all about connecting, creating community, and linger on with your learning. It's people don't know what to write about and they feel lost. Go back to your foundation. Why are you doing what you're doing? What's your next step? Where are you going? And then once you have that clarity in place, then you know what kind of learnings and things that you are kind of like, you know, it's like what hub do I want to go into? And you go in there, and that's where you find your peers and your community. And I think it's very important to connect with those type of peers. You're not only having, you know, coffees with them, learn from them as well, and then write about it, you know, put your 2 cents in there. People want to hear your story, and they want to know a bit about your personality. If you're just writing the, you know, generic things, how are you going to be noticed the right way? And this could be in different kind of like environments. So don't think of pencil browning as becomes overwhelming because everyone's giving you how-to advice. I think step away from that. And the reason why I'm saying that, because it's so much noise out there and you get lost. And then everyone thinks, this is not for me. And that's where they shut down. Yeah. So just go by what am I enjoying right now? What is it that I want to achieve? What is it that I'm learning? And what kind of peers do I want to connect with? And what are they talking about? Let me put my examples in there from my kind of like experience. That's where people kind of like connect. And the more relatable you become, you'll notice that you are actually connecting with your type of people. And who knows what other opportunities you're going to get from there. Instead of just like talking to anyone and everyone, like be very strategic in terms of like your content and your voice. And just remember, like, strategy is just like content with thought. That's all it is, you know? And then if you position yourself in that way, I think it's going to be a little bit easy for you. This is not just like every day you have to write something. You can even like DM people, you know, like that's still content. You know, you can write your own opinions on something that you're reading on someone else's post, you know, that's still a voice, you know, you're showing personality there.
Commenting is content.
Yeah, it is. It is. These are different types of touch points. Just remember, like, you're just being visible in the right areas. And that's all you need to know. It's like, how do I become visible? How do I show up in a way that people can notice me in the right way? And, you know, that could be in a public environment or in a private DM kind of like environment as well. Yeah. I think the more kind of like private you are, I think you're going to be fast-tracked very quickly in a quicker way. Yeah. I think so.
No, I think it's great. And it's just such a huge opportunity not to be missed.
Yeah.
Like LinkedIn is like, I mean, let's use LinkedIn, but any other social media site, because you can find your community anywhere.
That's it. That's what you have to do. Find your community is more of a bigger thing. When you find your community, it'll be easy for you.
Yeah. You know, and a little tip, like if you just like don't even know how to start doing that, is you can literally just, I know, let's say you're into like, I know, data science or something like that. Go onto like something like LinkedIn and you can just search, put in the search bar like data science, hit return, and then you can order it by posts, and you can see all these posts of people talking about data science, and then you can start connecting with people, you can start commenting, liking, so you can really find your community digitally like that. Mm-hmm. And
it's you can find by people, by posts, by content. There's so many things. Like, don't think like, you know, there's only one way to go about it.
Yeah. But you have to do something. It's way easier than it was. Like going to a cocktail party and or like a traditional networking event in real life. Most people, whether they like to admit it or not, it's really difficult, right? Emotionally going, you need to speak with people, you've got your business cards in your pocket, you want to try and speak with, you know, or a dinner, and you end up only speaking with the person left and right. It's quite hard, right? So also for introverts, it's very difficult. Anyone. But now digitally, whether you're introvert, extrovert, whatever.
Even if you are connecting, I'll say like, and you're so scared to put your opinions out there, just ask questions. Simple as that. And then that will kind of like be a trickle, you know, a ripple effect of something else.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would add is like part of it is this learning is you have something more to offer people. You know, there's nothing probably more detrimental to networking than just asking for things, right? Like part of networking we think is the traditional networking, you know, to your point, like hand you my business card, everyone's like, oh, what do you need from me? Yeah. But sometimes networking is checking in on people. How are you? What's going on? Like you said,
I thought that's what networking is.
That is networking. Those people miss.
I've never heard of someone like trying to, I don't know what it is. I shut down when someone tries to sell me something.
That's the point.
Even if you're
networking is connecting, right? It's connections. Yeah. And that is like, you know, giving information to someone for free or adding value in some way, or even just showing up.
So maybe
saying
we just
hi,
stop
you know?
using the word network. It's building community, and
That's
it's being
it,
able to
yeah.
offer something. You know, if I learn something, there's nothing I love more, as we all know, and anyone that works with me, than to just shout it from the rooftops. You know, I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly wanting to learn. And then if I think it's valuable, I want to share it. And then you know what happens is I'm always then so surprised. You know, Ameera and I have great chats because it turns out we're reading a lot of the same things. We're on a similar, you know, journey, and we end up really feeding into one another's, you know, passions. And then it's really great because then you build accountability with someone and you can go further. It's like that idea of going further together. And so I found that, you know, the more that you're learning, the more that you can offer people, the more they feel comfortable offering themselves to you. And then that community not only benefits you, but when you're benefiting other people, it takes all the pressure off. But I think the big takeaway is nothing happens immediately and overnight. And even when it feels like it does happen overnight to someone, they've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So it's kind of that classic, you know, duck, you know, paddling below the water,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
look so serene.
And you'd be so surprised, like, for example, like, don't feel like you have to network at your peers only. If you're lacking confidence or you're admiring someone, go ask them questions like, how are you doing that? You know, how do you get that confidence? Or like very simple things.
And the worst thing that can happen is they don't reply to your message.
But people
Yeah.
love
I
helping
mean,
people.
they
That's the funny
do.
thing. We underestimate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, if you're listening to this right now, is don't wait until you need something before you start networking, because then you fall into the sales thing. And I say need something. Let's say like job related. It's like, let's say you really want to find a new job this year. You really want to find a new job in 2025. Don't wait until you're out of work and you know, feeling desperate and things. Like, just this community building should happen like just, it should be like going for a walk in the morning. It should be like making your coffee, jumping on your favorite social media platform where your folks are at, and like 5 minutes, just comment, like something, drop someone a note, even like say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to like have a networking chat with one person a week this year. That'll be 52 people you have a chat with that year. Amazing, right? And when you need them, they'll be there for you because you've been there for them. But when you start being like, hey, I want a job, or hey, Ameera, great to, we haven't spoken for ages. By the way, like I'm exiting my firm this year. Do you have a very different vibe, right?
Or, hey, here's my resume.
Here's your
How does it
resume.
look? It's great. I mean, I'd love to offer, you know, as much as I can, but the first thing I would say is that's not where, I mean, I'd love for you to focus on all of these other actions. Your resume will come in handy at some point. It's really important for you to be the expert in your background. Everyone should just sit down and try to write a resume just so that they're, you know, more up to date on their stats and facts. You know, what is my career? What have I done? What have I accomplished? What am I looking to do? But let's not start there, you know. And I do agree with you. I think it's, you know, really respecting people's time, really respecting what people can offer, and, you know, not just reaching out when you need something. Because, you know, I was talking to someone I have someone I speak to once a month. We really connected. She just happens to be a really phenomenal marketer. And, you know, she said something and it really shifted. It's like when you've built a relationship for someone, it's a no-brainer when they ask you for something.
Yeah,
They want to help.
yeah.
And that's the difference.
Do you want to help your friends?
Yeah. Make some new friends this year.
Yeah, that's
You
it.
should see it as networking is speaking to a friend.
Yeah.
You don't ask your friends a favour every single time you speak to
No,
them,
no.
right?
It gets annoying, doesn't it? It's like, oh no, she's calling again, like, you know. But yeah, it's
It's like a
friendships.
check-in, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
just
yeah.
checking in.
Just check in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be good at checking in with people. You love it. If anyone's like drops me a note, it's like, hey Lewis, just seeing how you're getting on, haven't spoken for a while. I feel
love
really good
that.
about myself.
Let's agree not to use the word
Yeah.
networking anymore, though. Let's, you know.
Connect.
Just checking in. Connect.
Checking in, yeah.
Just checking in. How's it going? Fancy catching up. The thing I love about my job is that is like, that's what we do, right? Like we are networking, we're making friends. And, you know, this classic cheesy quote is your network is your net worth. Kind of, you know, and it's true. It's like a lot of things happen through people that you know.
And also, we are human beings. You have to remember that. You know, people feel so stiff when they're talking to a stranger and they feel like they need to have a pitch. You don't need to do that. You can be vulnerable. It's okay, you know? Just show up, be authentic. And I know people are like cringing, like, oh God, the word authentic. But it's just like if you show up and say, hey, how's it going? this is whatever the situation is. You can speak about something so little, so broad. It's just people can sense when something is real versus something that is like has a hidden agenda.
One tip for people actually, because again, like not everyone's very comfortable with speaking with someone that they don't know.
Yeah.
Very nerve-wracking thing, right? If you go in with some questions, if you're asking questions, you have the power in the conversation. Mm-hmm. So if I ask you a question, you have to answer me. I can just shut up, listen.
That's a good tip.
And people like people that listen to them. So you start to build up a little bit of, so you're showing interest, right? It's like, oh, Ameera, like, what's your routine like? Or what would you do? So you're asking people questions, and you can prepare 3 or 4 questions. And then suddenly the conversation will be self-sustaining, and you'll end up in a conversation. Mm-hmm. And then that's what my one tip. Go have some good questions to ask.
I like that.
I think my tip for interviewing, someone asked me the other day, I'm going for an interview. And yes, of course, like, not to take a step further, I interview the company. Like, you are the worst thing that can happen is you interview so well for a job you don't belong in, and you don't show up authentically to the point where they think that it's going to be a great fit. I think we're past that. Interview the company, understand the startup costs, be willing to challenge a little bit, just to make sure that not only are you asking the right questions, to get the job, but you're asking the right questions so that it really does work for you. And I think that is, the difference. It's when you elevate from interview to conversation. And it's when, sometimes you might ask a question and really get that person thinking, like, this is what I need. I actually need someone who's going to, push on these buttons. And I hadn't thought of it that way. And all of a sudden, you're adding that value. So there's a tremendous opportunity to use an interview as a way to, bring everything that you've learned to the table, because even if you don't get that job, you will be remembered and you will be, on the next list. Like, people don't always understand that the interview is part of a continuum. So even if you interview, that job doesn't go your way, you don't have the right skill set, they had someone internal, there was a referral. But the next time it's like, you know what? I want to talk to Lewis again. I really enjoyed that conversation. People that keep in touch with people they've interviewed with, that also becomes part of your network. So, make sure that if you've had a conversation, it didn't go your way.
Ask for feedback too.
Feedback is tough.
I know,
sometimes
but
I don't give it.
I think feedback is so important.
Yeah, it's a gift to give feedback. Connect with them after, to your point.
Yeah.
You've interviewed them, maybe haven't got the job, connect, say thank you so much, great to meet you. Any feedback, would love to hear, let me know. Suddenly they're part of your network. And you never know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, well, to your point, they might be hiring. They might be like, oh, I met Jamie.
I remember when Lewis asked me all those tough questions, and the job wasn't right then. We weren't ready yet, but now we're ready.
Yeah.
So
it's not them telling you that you're in the wrong career and you need to change up your life. It's just them telling you that this particular job isn't right for you right now.
Yeah.
And so don't take it too, it's hard to do, rejection is never good, but just learn. Mm-hmm. Don't take it personally. And all of this interviewing stuff is about finding the right place for you. Right place, right person, right job, and all of those things.
And always remember, rejection is a redirection. So, yeah.
Love that.
I'm pretty optimistic about 2025.
Pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
So like on a scale of, going better than 24?
Yeah.
In what sense?
So. I think that we are now in a new normal, and I think that people have readjusted. I think the shockwaves of all of the redundancies and the sudden impacts to industries that felt really stable. I think that dust has cleared. I think things are settling. I think a lot of these organizations that were really trying to reorganize and figure out what to do with their current incumbents is going to settle, and I think more opportunity is going to open up. So I think that it's going to look and feel the same? I don't. I think that the things that we're talking about in terms of figuring out how to navigate in this new normal is going to become really important. So if you can kind of crack that code, and we're happy to help, then I do think it's going to be a better market and less stagnation.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be. Also, don't get me wrong. It's not like there's still a fair amount of hiring going on. Mm-hmm. People are moving, but it's been a little bit. The levels have been lower, so there's been less people moving, which means creating less jobs, things like that. Obviously, the redundancies. We've seen it pick up slowly over the year, and so it's just been building. There's obviously a lot of like stuff going on in the world, lots of elections and all of that stuff this year. But from a lot of people that we speak with, also interest rates have gone down a little bit. So I think it all feeds into people's sentiment and mood, and mindset, and whether they want to invest in expanding or a new project and all the different things that might create jobs. So I'm always optimistic, but I am realistically optimistic. I think it's turning up now. I think 25, and it's all cyclical. Like we've worked through a few different cycles, and I'm excited. Like I'd love to see what's going to happen next. There's a lot of change in the job market, new jobs being created. There's so much going on with AI and all of that stuff. I mean, the amount that we've been using it more just this year is just like incredible. So all of that stuff I'm excited to see. And and for those thinking about goal setting and things they might want to work on for 25, I think quadruple down on your human skills, listening, conversation, listen to understand, have good questions, build all of those human skills, and I think you'll be in a good spot.
Absolutely. AI is not going to take that over.
It will not take that over yet.
Not yet.
Maybe we'll be doing this in a year or two. We'll take something different. But no, right now, do the things you can control. Absolutely. It's like linking it all together. It's like make sure that your energy levels and your batteries like charged at all times for all the stuff. Keep learning, keep networking, and work on yourself.
I really love that we didn't talk so much about AI, even though I think that we're, because we see the value in, and I think you just nailed it really, which is in creating more high value skills. So AI can take the busy, and we can double, quadruple down on building relationships and being strategic. Yeah,
absolutely. You can let your AI control a computer and reply to stuff, whatever. But go speak with humans, like do the video call, do the coffee, do the lunch, do the
do the connections.
Do the connection.